Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. In the name of Allah, the merciful, the beneficent, praise to be the Lord of all worlds. Prayers and peace be upon our Prophet Muhammad, his family, and all of his companions. The Honorable Mr. Wiryono Raharjo, Mrs. Dian Sari Utami, respected speakers, and all attendees. Welcome to a joint activity, Passage to ASEAN Culture Talk. I am Siti Mahdaria, and it's my pleasure to serve as the moderator for this important agenda. On behalf of Universitas Islam Indonesia, I want to extend a very warm welcome to all of you. Culture is important for many reasons. Perhaps the most prominent reason is the social impact it brings. Culture can help reinforce identities, enhance cross-cultural understanding, and preserve the heritage and culture of an area. Before we discuss further, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Wiryono Raharjo to deliver the opening remarks. To Mr. Wiryono Raharjo, the screen is yours.
Thank you very much, Ria. Can you just to check the microphone? Is it clear? Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Clear.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, everyone. I see many familiar faces here, my colleagues. So let me first say hello to Ajaran Jerun Sandler of Rangsit University, Dr. Rukmawati Brotojoyo of the Universitas Pembangunan Nasional Veteran Yogyakarta, Honorable also Dr. Mutohar of Universitas Muria Kudus, and all the distinguished speakers and all the participants of the P2A talk show. Well, first of all, let us thank God for the blessings He grants to all of us. So we still survive amid ongoing pandemic, which we don't know until when this will end. But Passage to ASEAN activities must not stop just because of these situations. We have set our goals to be the leading regional consortiums that focus on academic mobility, especially students' mobility. So we need to find ways to reach that goal. The pandemic must not stop us from continuing our programs. This event is an example of our effort to maintain mobility program to allow students and academics to have experience. I think you all probably know P2A learning methods consist of 3 steps: knowledge, experience, and understanding. This is Ajahn Cherun Schedler mentioned this many times in various occasions. So I guess this event is part of the first and the second steps. ASEAN is a very rich and diverse region. We have so many ethnics, languages, and very diverse culture. We are blessed with climate that allows the existence of a very complex assemblage of flora and fauna. So this is what you're going to discuss today. The 3 topics of discussions and the experienced speakers should give you a better understanding on the richness of cultures in these regions. I guess that is all I can say to kick off this event. I hope this program can inspire many other initiatives of cooperation in the future. And of course, I would like to thank the co-organizer of this event, the team led by Rangsit University, and then team from Universitas Islam Indonesia, from Universitas Pembangunan Nasional Veteran Yogyakarta, and Universitas Muria Kudus for making this event possible. Thank you very much and enjoy the event. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ring, for your remarkable opening. The diversity of ASEAN countries is something we should be grateful for. Ladies and gentlemen, please give virtual applause for Mr. Ring. Now, we will have a photo session. Ladies and gentlemen, please turn on your camera and show us your best smile on the screen. And let us take a few screenshots. I will count up to 3 when our team will capture the moment. So please, to all of you, I'm inviting you to turn on your camera and show us your best smile. Okay, is the team ready to capture the moment? All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have 7 screens to capture. So please keep smiling, yeah? So I will count up to 3 for 7 times. So just get ready, all right? Okay, wait a minute. 1, 2, 3. All right, second. 1, 2, 3. Okay, the third slide. Wait a minute, the picture, your video is loading. 1, 2, 3. All right. Fourth slide. 1, 2, 3. Fifth. 1, 2, 3. And okay, only 6. This is the last one. 1, 2, 3. Great. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for sharing your best smile. We will edit the picture and share the result with you. So just wait for that. The next agenda, we will have the panel discussion with the first topic, Tales from the Locals. There will be 4 panelists, including Mr. Yudi Widyakusumo from Universitas Pembangunan Veteran Yogyakarta, Mr. Rifki Fajar Gandawiguna from Universitas Islam Indonesia, Dr. Hilal Maji from Universitas Muria Kudus, and the last speaker is Mr. Forapon Mahakem, Master of Education from Rangsit University. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the four of the speakers for the first panel by giving a virtual applause. Okay, welcome to all speakers. Could you please say something? Okay, all right. So is Mr.
Hello, everyone.
Kusuma is here?
Yeah, hello.
Yay. What about Mr. Rifki Fajar?
Hello, everyone.
Great.
Can you hear my voice?
Sure, it's very clear. Dr. Hilal Maji?
Hello, good afternoon.
Matur suhun. Mr. Tony or Forapon Mahakel?
Hi, how are you everybody?
Hi.
Hi.
So is everyone good?
Yes, very good. We are so ready.
Okay, great. So in this panel, we are going to discuss about the tales from the locals. Let me start by asking you the first thing we should discuss for the first panel. Like, could you please share from your own perspective, based on your own background, how do you define the myth?
Who is first?
Let's start from Mr. Yudi.
Okay. Yeah. Let me introduce myself. My name is Yudi Widya Kusuma from UPN Veteran Jakarta. I think mythology is a belief system that is often associated with the supernatural powers of a culture based on leadership in a society, provides the rationale for religion and practice of a culture, and it's a reflection of people relationship with each other in social life. It because in Yogyakarta have, especially in Jakarta, have so many myths that develop from what is it, from Keraton Palace.
So could you please give one example from the myth at the palace?
Yeah, as like, you know, in Jakarta, have made a sayur lodeh. This myth developed from Keraton. We have made sayur lodeh is seven vegetables. It's like a soup from coconut milk. There are, for example, from the vegetable eggplant, long bean, melinjo leaves, kluwi, and also pumpkins and carrot. Yeah, the seven vegetables mix made a sayur lodeh.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they because Sultan and the Sultanate and many people which it called myth develop in the Yogyakarta.
I see. Wow. So it's very interesting, yeah, how mixing veg interesting, very special for people in Jakarta. What about what do you think, Mr.
I guess very first question thing here for me really, I mean, if we have to define the word myth itself, let's start by talking about the different these words first. So if we look up the word in dictionary, myth is defined as a traditional story, especially one which explains the early history or a cultural belief or the practices of a group of people in a nationality and explain, even like explain. But if you ask me like myth and high context and Thailand, I probably would go to something like the background of Thailand. As some of you may know that Thailand is a Buddhist faith country, and we have the monarchy as a pillar of stability in Thailand, and Bangkok is the control part of everything. But however, I mean, like it varies different on like uh, topographically and culturally. So when it comes to high context, I would say that it could refer to a story, history of ancient kingdoms, terrifying stories, right, and national icons. And to be honest with you, Thailand is a country's myth legends. You know, Thai tales have survived through ages. Yes.
Wow, that's very fascinating to hear that how ancient kingdom still
Yes,
last for so long, and you can still hear the story and history.
that's right.
That's really amazing. I wonder about what about in Kudus? What do you think, Dr. Hilal? Is there something similar happen in Kudus? Like I heard a lot of religious stuff going on in Kudus as well.
Yeah, it is very nice to join this discussion. When we talk about myth, I think we have also another term that is mythology. Myth and mythology is different, of course. Well, myth is, I think, what is it? Symbolic narrative, yeah, usually narrative, and it is actually unknown. What is it? Unknown origin, and at least partly traditional. Yeah, most of myth will always be related to something traditional, relates to what is it? Actual events that is and associated with religious belief. Yeah, religious belief. Say, for example, when Japanese farmers, including Kudus farmers, want to have what is it? Harvest the rice. Then there will always be some myth, yeah, dealing with the harvest time. So it is interesting because myths sometimes also what is it related to superhuman beings. Superhuman being involves in extraordinary events or circumstances, which is also what is it understood as existing apart from ordinary human experience. So myth happens everywhere in our country, especially in Java, and in Kudus, some myth which is related to religious belief. For example, in the time of Salat Maghrib, then we have to shut the door. Yeah, we have to keep the children well because it is said that in the time it is dangerous to be outside of the house. Yeah. And mythology, of course, denotes to the study of myth and the body of myths belonging to a particular religious tradition. So what we talk about, our discussions is mythology too, yeah, because we talk about myth, yeah. Okay.
Wow, yeah, that's really true. Like, I think what Mr. Yudi and Mr. Tony also agree that when we discuss about myth, it's also about symbolic narrative, something related to our history. Yeah, like, so what about Mr. Rifki? What about your perspective? How do you define the myth?
Hello, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, so actually I do agree what has been explained by Ahmad, Mr. Tony, and Ayudi related to the myth. But I'm going to
Kalau mau sekarang boleh, tidak apa-apa.
explain by the
Besok aja,
type of-
besok aja.
So
Yeah.
6 categories. into 6 categories. So the first one is cosmogonic, 6 categories about the origin of the world, and then the organic. Organic is the myth which tells about God or invisible power. Probably we know Thor. Thor is type of organic story. And then we also have, and then etiological. Etiological is a myth about nature. So in Yogyakarta or in Java, we have a very strong etiological story, which is called by Queen of South or Nyi Roro Kidul, by in bahasa Indonesia we call it Nyi Roro Kidul. So Nyi Roro Kidul is a very strong myth for Javanese people, and it also nature. We respect the water, and then we also respect our environment. And then the next one is scatological myth. So it tells about the life after death. Even in our religious belief, we have their own story, but in this perspective, we can put it into the myth because we haven't found the truth about bad and good, something like that, yeah. So that's my perspective about the myth. And also, myth can be used to explain a phenomena that cannot be reached by the logic at that time. So as an example, there is a flood or there is a tsunami. We cannot explain tsunami by our logic. Tell us wisely by creating myth so we can understand easily and we can take a lesson. So how do we communicate with our environment? So I think that's my perspective about them. Yeah.
Thank you so much, all the speakers. I feel like thank you so much, all the speakers. It's very different story to tell, but I believe we all agree that basically all of you have similar understanding on how you define a myth. So let me come to Mr. Tony first. Like you said that there are a lot of ancient kingdom that is still that still exists. Is keep passing by through the generations. So could you please share with us, like, how does the myth related to the ancient kingdom reshape the society today in Thailand?
Yes. For this question, I think it's quite, and it's very useful for other people from really understand the concept, But I just want to go back a little bit about to the purposes of the myth, because all the speakers have done a great job when they talk about the purposes, especially at the speaker when they talk about, you talk about it. So I guess legends are an important part of any culture, right? And we see them as entertainment for generations, and they serve as valuable legends. And this is here when you talk about films, you can hear something morally, you can hear something valuable lesson, which lasts decades, centuries, and people in the urban area, the part of Thailand or Bangkok, you can learn something, stories about the ancient kingdoms, the rise of and all those superstitious belief and stuff, So you can hear some part of that in narrative. And my point is that when you hear something that it comes to the that why have myth across the board with so many generations, because it is my elders who believe younger generation, don't do this because it will result in something bad. A moral lesson, teaching the importance of following the traditions, following traditions in those according to those kingdoms, or even saying, reference to elders, to the king, to the monarchy, see that, like the kingdom with heresy like that, or even stories of this one, the spirit world, consider to be cautious, to stay at home at night, to respect customs regarding that ritual, important of it, and I lesson for 2,000 years in Thailand, we have a lot of royal families, back in the day. For this current monarchy, almost 200, and from that 1,000 years ago, the first Sukhothai dynasty, and we heard a lot of myth, a lot of stories about king, about how this king uh, ascended to the throne, stuff like that. So its story is that lasts for a lifetime, and it's great, really great. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tony. I think how the elders in Thailand keep telling the story and history of the past to the next generation, I think it's really inspiring. And yeah, I feel like if the young generation, like these days, keep following what the elders have done by keeping telling the story to the next generation, I think Thai can always keep the myth to the next
That's
generation.
right. It's
Yeah.
really a lesson learned for younger generation, and some might not be right in that context, but right now it's right. So it's really, and we should talk about it orally. Right now we can talk like this. It's great.
Yeah. I think it is a nice idea to empower the young generation to maintain the story, the narrative, the myth, even though it's a myth, but it is part of the history. Thank you so much, Mr. Tony. Now I wonder about what happened. Yeah, what happened in Yogyakarta, Mr. Yudi? Could you please share how the myth in Yogyakarta reshaped the society there?
Yeah. When I give you an example of myth that developed during a pandemic situation, especially in Yogyakarta, there was once a pagabluk, pagabluk or an epidemic that attacked Yogyakarta. And Sultan conveyed a message to his people to cook 7 kinds of vegetables called sayur lodeh. Sayur lodeh is a coconut milk soup. Yeah. When we discuss the myth, it's very similar to the myth that developed in Yogyakarta during the pandemic. So during the current pandemic, the myth of making local vegetable is also growing again. So seems like rational. I think what we have to make sayur lodeh. What's the relate to the pandemic? But in my opinion, it is very reasonable that the myth can be trusted to develop. On the one hand, in ancient times, people nutrition was still not good, and when they were ordered to make vegetables, the community believed it because it bring positive value, was improving nutrition for the community. As with the myth during the pandemic, they believe in the myth of loaded vegetables that developed to heal the same during the ancient blue. In my opinion, this is myth can develop because it brought good things in ancient times because it was believed to cure many diseases. So it became irrational, but it can relate. It bring good nutrition. Yeah, so that the myth of making loaded vegetable can develop again during the COVID.
That's very interesting. So, do you think these days people in Yogyakarta favor the vegetables more than they normally do?
Now we have a restaurant, we have a menu. It's called Lodek. We can go to Kopi Klotok near UII. Yeah.
Okay, that's
Uh,
very
we can
interesting.
try. It's called sayur lodeh. It bring a good nutrition.
Yeah, I mean, I have been living in Yogyakarta for more than 5 years, but this is the first time I hear this myth. So I think it's because of the pandemic. This myth become popular again. How the
Yeah,
how the mix of vegetables can bring nutritional benefit.
yeah. I think we have to literate the young generation, millennial generation, to know uh, the good good positive view from the myth. I think we have to literate. It's
All
because
right.
the our communicator is a person. It's called Sur. We know the Sur power is very good, so we have to develop with a good iteration for the new generation.
All right. So Mr. Tony and Mr. Yudi are talking about how we should empower our youngsters to continue the myth since it brings uh,
More or less.
the value, yeah, the value to the society. So what do you think, Mr. Dr. Hilal? Do you have similar things going on in your area, like how the myth reshape the society around you? Sorry, your microphone is mute. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. I'm sorry. I do agree with the previous ideas that myth has a what they said a positive or good value for our society, but sometimes it also has a negative side there. And say, for example, like this, and then wait a minute. I would like to say that besides having a positive value or a good value, myth has also power. Yeah, power to force the the community to believe it or not believe it, to believe it or not. So just like religious symbolism, yeah, people never what is it have attempt to justify the mythic narratives or event, whether it is true or it is not true. But it has a power to influence people how to think, how to behave, how to something because of the myth. Again, has a power. Say, for example, when I was still a child, yeah, uh, my grandmother always say, "Hilal, don't eat in front of the door because it is not good." So you say,
Same like
you see, my grandfather didn't say uh, it will waste your food. No, but it is not good. Yeah, and because of that, then what is it? The value in the talk of my grandmother really influenced me not to have a lunch or breakfast or dinner in front of the door. Yeah. We do not know what will be the impact, the negative impact of having food in front of the door, but we don't have what is it accustomed to do that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. So you said that the learning value from your grandmother has influenced you to not eating in front of the door because you learn it from her. I think, yeah, I think it's similar to what the other speakers has explained on how from our ancestors the story can be heard until today. Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Hilal, for sharing that. I think this is the common myth that has been heard by most of the Indonesians, like from Sumatra to Papua. Maybe everyone hear that, and that's true. I mean, like we're not going to hear that if our a grandma or grandpa perhaps didn't tell our parents about that, and then they told us about that as well. So, what do you think, Mr. Rifki? Do you have something in common about how the myth reshaped the society around you?
Okay, so actually, what I observed recently related to the culture or myth in for Japanese people especially, just like what I said previously related to Nyiroro Kidul or Queen of the South. So I think myth need to be told to the younger generation because that's the way how do we interact with the nature actually with the nature because now we have more sophisticated technology probably people forget to take a look into our local wisdom because we already enjoy the development of technology and then we forget that our ancestor has taught us about the way how do we interact with our nature. So I would like to highlight one story about Nyiroro Kidul as an example. So we do respect the ocean, right? The way how do we respect the ocean? I think it reflects that we also need to maintain the ocean. We need to respect the ocean. As an example, do not put garbage in the ocean or we have to keep the ocean clean. I think that's part of the value, just like what Pa Ahmad told previously, that the most important thing we need to take the value or the learning point from the previous or from the myth which is told by our ancestor. So myth need to be used. It has the way how do we interact with our nature in terms of preserving our nature, in terms of respecting others, nature, to our moral in terms because when we discuss about myth, actually it has some common myth, but also has so many different local myth, and it can be more what I'm trying to say. And it the main is we need to keep telling the myth to our younger generation in order to the we maintain the we need to keep our nature the way yang our generation how we interact with other people in positive ways. I think that's from my perspective related to how the myth reshape our society.
So I was wondering about this, let's talk a lot about when I think that we would talk with we usually it flows through time by thinking about it orally, right? Countries, how they connected other generation. Myth is recorded in any other form too. I mean, like in mainstream media, movies or films or series and stuff like that. So, for example, like in Thailand, you know what? Back in the day, usually the myth by our like elderly, by the elders. But right now, for a couple of years, there are a lot of movies talking about myth in general. So, and this is one way that younger generation can learn myth? And how about other countries? It's myth recorded in other too?
What do you think, Mr. Yudi? Is it recorded, the myth?
Yeah, I think it's still grow and develop. If we make a conclusion from communication studies, that myth can prove well if they are there by influence people. For example, a person like a Sultan, King of Yogyakarta. So the myth can develop well, and the message there is convey. If it have a good impact, we will always believe to be good. So that an effective myth. I think, yeah.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
What about Dr. Hilal? Do you have different perspective or responding to Mr. Tony's question?
Yeah, I think every myth presents itself as an authoritative, yeah, or a kind of factual account, no matter how much the narrated events can be appear in the recent what is it time in the recent modern society. But of course, as an authoritative symbolism, it has what is it natural law, because it deals with ordinary experience, and it makes people more or less care with what is believed by people in a society. Yeah, I think that's.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much. That's true. So I think the speakers are saying something in common with different narrative, that the myth can develop, create new impact, but it should be taught because it will shape the society. Because understanding of the local myth will result in respecting the others as well. Wow, I think that's really fruitful. The discussion is very rich. Then now we are going to the question and answer session. So for all the participants here, if you have any question, feel free to write it on the chat box, or you can turn on your microphone and share your question. Okay, while waiting for the participants, maybe to type their question on the chat box, I haven't heard from Mr. Rifki responding to Mr. Tony's question. Do you think that myth is also recorded somewhere in the document, or yeah, in the palace as well, or yeah, what do you think? Is it recorded?
Okay, so if we take a look on the history probably in our nation or in the previous kingdom that exists in our country, or we call it Nusantara previously. So we can see that the myth, some of the myths are recorded in certain documents. It can be in rock, or it can be in leaf. So there are some historical artifact that we can find which prove that myth is recorded. But when we discuss about is the myth real experience, or it's only or it creates by the people at that time, so it needs further research, yeah, I think, because when we said it's not really, or it's not true story, some of the people believe about that one. Most of the people believe at that time probably they experienced that situation. But on the other hand, because probably the evidence cannot be found for certain stories, so we think that it's only an imagination or imaginative story. But I do agree actually with what has been explained by previous speakers, that the myth need to be preserved because our younger generation need to be thought about the story, what has been experienced by the previous generation. I think that's my answer. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Rizky, for the response. Also, as I can remember, like to be specific in Indonesian context, all the myth that I know, all the myth that I have learned, I think I learned it through Bahasa Indonesia textbook. Because like Mas Rifki said, that there are a lot of like natural disaster that happened in the past that couldn't be explained logically by the people in that era. So what they do to tell people how these things happen, they tell them the myth. They tell them the myth, and the story keep going even until today. So I think I'm not sure. What about in Thailand, Mr. Tony? Does the youngsters do the youngsters learn the myth also from textbook or just from word of mouth?
That's very interesting and really good thing to just tell us or tell about this. That you learn myth from text, and it's quite fascinating here because, and I would say that what textbook we don't actually provide many myths in the textbook itself. We have social science for sure, and we talk about history mostly. But in that part, we actually hear myth from our older generation, or from the elders, I should say. And apart from that, it could be from media, like series, like themes. And as I told you before that, as I told all this before that, Thailand, most of the time when we hear the word myth and we hear word story, it comes from generation by orally. But recently nowadays, we have seen myth in movies and series a lot, and even the book, sometimes. But it's pretty much like the reading for pleasure, sure, But the textbook, yeah, there are some, but not like all the myths in Thailand. Like so, in the textbook, like you said, is it like written in all the myths all across regions in Indonesia?
Sorry.
So when you mentioned that myth is talked and discussed in the textbook, right? So I believe that there are a lot of myths across the regions in Indonesia. So this textbook just use of like a few of myths, or like pretty much like a huge number of myths in it.
So the myth that is mentioned in the textbook, it's like the folklore of how, for example, certain mountain exists and why certain waterfall exists. So to give the understanding to the people in the old time of how those incident happen, so they make it as a story.
Yeah.
Well, I think this is very interesting question. Actually, we have one question, but unfortunately, the first panel is finished. And then, yeah, thank you so much for all the speakers. If I may conclude from the first panel is that the myth can develop, the myth can create new impact, but it should be told because it will shape the society. Therefore, the myth should be reserved as well. So thank you so much for all the speakers for the first panel. I think this is a very interesting topic to be discussed. And I'm so happy to learn more about, the Sayur Thailand over the generation. So, yeah, Thank you so much to Mr. Yudi, Mr. Rifki, Dr. Hilal, and also Mr. Tony. Ladies and gentlemen, please give virtual applause for all the panelists on the first panel. Thank you.
Thank you ขอบคุณครับ Bye
Then, ขอบคุณค่ะ Bye. Yep, ladies and gentlemen, get
Goodbye.
ready. Because now we are going to the second panel, which is about the photographs and footprints. The panelists for these session are, we have Miss Ida Ayu Purnama from Universitas Pembangunan Veteran Yogyakarta, Miss Ida Ayu Purnama, Mr. Danar Wicaksono from Universitas Pembangunan Veteran Yogyakarta, Miss Rusiana from Universitas Muria Kudus, and also Patara Nimol, Master of Multimedia Design from Rangsit University. So ladies and gentlemen, virtual applause to welcome all of the panelists for the second panel. Okay, let me greet everyone. Hi, Miss Ida. Is it how to call you, Miss Ida?
Okay, you can call me Miss Dayu.
Oh, Dayu. Okay. Miss Dayu, nice to meet you. And second,
Nice to meet you too, Mbak Ria ya.
Yes, thank you. How are you, Mr. Danar?
Hello, I'm fine, thank you. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Then, Miss Rusiana, how to call you? What's your nickname?
Rusiana, my full name is okay.
Okay. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you too, Mbak Ria.
Yeah. Hi, Mr. Pat.
Hello. How are you? I'm great.
That's good. That's good to hear. Yeah.
And my voice is clear, right? Did you hear my voice clearly?
Yeah, your voice is clearly, but
Okay.
maybe because you look at the screen, so your face doesn't look at the camera. Maybe you should turn right a little bit.
Oh,
so
okay.
I can
Hello.
see you. Yeah.
That's right.
Because I
That's so much better.
okay. I will try to look at the camera when I speak.
Yeah. Okay. So for the second session, we are going to talk about photographs and the footprints. So let me start by giving out a question to everyone. So I will explain the question first, and then I will ask one of you to start. So could you please think of how do you balance the natural preservation and tourism development? It can be based on your experience or based on your perspective, but the thing is that how do you balance between natural preservation and tourism development? I think let's start with Mr. Pat. What do you think?
I'm sorry, I muted my microphone. I'm okay. Okay. Yes, I think I could give this answer. When I receive the questions, how do I balance between natural preservations and tourism's development? It comes to my mind that actually I gotta mention to you guys before that my background was a designer. I teach design, especially multimedia design. So I'm normally working with the culture of art, designs, or contemporary art. So I would probably gonna give the perspective based on my background. How am I as a designer gonna keep that balance between the preservation? So before that, I have to think my old habit when I go travel first, because tourism and stuff is traveling. So I have to admit that every time in the past when I go travel, I always think about myself. The systems help me to think like that too, such as like I work so hard for during a week, and stuff, I have old behavioral of thinking about like I have to be pleased when I go travel because I pay for it. You know, I want to pay for any services. I want to pay for. I want to receive a better service. I want to receive a lot of things. So that's kind of mindset. It's kind of like wrong, I think, because it's a mindset that I put myself to be the center of everything. And I think that is kind of like an old way traveling, that I projected to the whole way. And how to change that? How do I kind of steadily start thinking about nature, and thinking about myself less? It is not easy because I do believe behavioral is one of the hardest things to change in the world because we get used to the things. We do things every day the same, right? And then we get used to it. So I come to think about then how do I keep that balance? Now I imagine that in the past I don't have any example. The way we communicate is less. 20 years ago we don't have internet. We couldn't even meet like this. We can't even talk across the country like this. The way we communicate it's different. We put ourselves into a small community within our own area, maybe inside our own culture. We don't know what's going on in the part of the world. So I think we don't have any example. But nowadays there are many platforms in design. For example, Instagram, Facebook, blah blah blah, that have many influencers, YouTuber, celebrities that they could be a very good example. They try to go travel and show us and encourage us to travel with the new system. So when I take a look at that, the young generations, when they go travel and they talk a lot about preservation, about saving the world, about travel with the green energy and stuff, and then I let myself come back to my mind that and that could be a very good example. And I enjoy following them, because it's a pretty kind of a soft skill and soft power. So I think that's the key point as a designer. In order to hack the old system, we need to create a new system to help people slightly change their behavioral, because behavioral, it's so hard to change that by itself. And I do believe in that because for me, the new perspective of the system of traveling is a design. So tourism is and design share the same core, which we're not forcing people to change, but we encourage people with using soft power and soft skill to be an example, to encourage them or influence them to change. And that is the key point for me. So how do we keep that balance? I think it's to make it in real. I think people need the new system of the way they perceive things when they go travel. And think about it. If we think about ourselves as a center when we go travel, it means ourselves is so big, But when we think about myself, I think, oh, myself is so big. Everything is small. But if we try to change the system and then the mindset start to change, and then we are going to be smaller, and the nature will be bigger, and then we will see things like in the very different perspective, and that's the beauty things in the world too. But people, especially me, cannot just start right away and then within one snap and then tomorrow I want to change. That's possible when we idealistically we think like that, but practically it's so hard to keep the balance. But it's important nowadays, and there are a lot of platforms and design platforms and influencers and examples nowadays that show us how to keep this balancing with the new type of system. Yeah, does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Okay, that's kind of what I'm thinking about it.
So let me confirm, like what I get from your explanation is that your sharing about the meaning of traveling for you has been changing. Yes. Now it's not only about personal pleasure, but it's more on how you encourage yourself to change your mindset to be better. So it's like traveling for you is like a journey to define who you really are. Is it like that?
And that's a beautiful meanings that you put on, that you encourage me back with the words too. Exactly correct, because it's a beauty when you go out, when you see nature of the thing. It's the same as design. when I do design, we borrow things from nature as well. And I would probably use the word appreciation. I think that word, it's kind of like the core things of, we don't only appreciate ourselves. We need to change that now, because the old way, it's all about services. We don't think about nature. We don't appreciate it as it should be appreciated, so the way you put it, perfect, thank you.
Thank you so much. That's my pleasure. Now I wonder, what do you think, Miss Dayu? Do you also have something going on based on your background on how you balance the natural preservation and tourism development based on your experience?
Okay. Thank you so much.
I'm
Okay.
sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm confused. I thought you were asking me. I'm sorry. Okay.
It's okay.
Please go on. I didn't hear clearly. Please go on.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Ria. Before I tell you about how to balance between the natural preservation and tourism development, maybe we have to know about what is the negative effect or the positive effect about the development especially in Bali Island, because I'm from there, so I will discuss about Bali Island. So in the positive effect, maybe economic growth higher in Bali year by year, you know that before this pandemic also. And sorry, okay. And this happens because some of the person maybe invested their money and built hotel, homestay, some of the facilities in Bali. So because of they invest their money in Bali, so people go to Bali to have the vacation there, so they can enjoy stay in Bali. So, but there is maybe just one negative effect, that some of the facilities in Bali built near the beach, the hotel homestay near the beach, and maybe some of the people that do not have to have money to stay there, we can see beautiful view, that maybe if you are, I guess, in the room, you can see a beautiful view in the window, then just open the door, open the window like that, after you see the beautiful view there. But if you are just like me, just live in Bali, but we do not know what a beautiful view to stay in hotel. That's very expensive for us to stay there. So, and one of the statement or topic that's very important in Bali is we know that the land reclamation in Teluk Benua, you know about the problem maybe. Okay, reclamation is something that activities make the beach become a land. So if the build a land, and then you can build the hotel, homestay, and some of the facilities. That is destroy the naturality of Bali Islands. So we have to keep it. We have to keep the natural Bali Island. Do not destroy, and we have to keep the beautiful view of Bali. Thank you, Ms. Ria.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Well, Bali is amazing. Bali is amazing. And then I was always amazed, like every time I go there. But what I get from your explanation is far beyond the beauty of Bali. It's like I catch that you said that if you want to see a beautiful view, it's not about going to a fancy place, but it is more on appreciating your surrounding. If you want to see a beautiful view, open the window and appreciate what you see. I think that's really beautiful. That's really beautiful of you for sharing that. Thank you so much, Ms. Dayu. Then I wonder, what do you think, Mr. Danar? Do you have something in common in terms of how you do the preservation and tourism development?
Okay, thank you. From Bali, we move to Yogyakarta. Yeah. So Indonesia has many tourism destination like Bali and also Yogyakarta. So today I'm in Yogyakarta. For Indonesia, I think natural preservation and tourism development should be balanced because Indonesia is the largest archipelago country at the equator line and have about 17,000 islands. Yeah, so nature is a part of Indonesian tourism competitiveness than the other area in ASEAN maybe. So this is our potential to develop tourism. So it's important, it's become important to care our nature because this is what I have to develop our tourism. Yeah, like today, from what I get in some article, that 70% of reptiles in the world, there are 70%, 17% bird in the world, and also 12% mammals in the world is in Indonesia. That's our nature that we have to care because also this is our potential for our tourism development. Actually, what Dayu said and also Pat said before, it's very, very open our mind that we have to care our nature. Yeah? For every step that we take, we have to stop for a moment to think about the impact to the environment. So like what Dayu say in Bali, even we can build maybe a hotel nearby beach, is the have impact to our nature or not? We have to stop our step for a moment to think about it. Indonesia have about 50 national park. National park is like a place like a park, so can be a forest and also marine that we care that we doing conservation there and also can be used destination also. For today, at least we have I put some note about Pangandaran. Pangandaran, we have mangrove plantation there to conserve the beach and also energy and climate management. This is how we care our nature and also still keep to develop our tourism. We also have Borneo for orangutan conservation. Of course, Komodo Island that we still close until today for conservation. It's also a tourist destination, including Raja Ampat in Sumatra and also, Raja Ampat and Toba in Sumatra. It's a sample how we can still develop tourist development, but also still can care our nature. So to make it balanced. Yeah.
All right. So I think it's all about mindfulness, like, being considerate and also really careful on what to do in every step we make in our daily life, not only while we are during the traveling. I think that's really good. I mean, like, the mindfulness concept is not that familiar among youngsters these days. So I feel like, thank you so much, Mr. Danar, for bringing it here. While a lot of like Gen Z and millennials are here being mindfulness, I think it's a new trend, the old but new trend. So yeah, thank you so much for bringing up this issue. I think, yeah, I mean, there are a lot of things that you have explained here that is really meaningful to learn. But then what about your perspective, Miss Luciana? Like,
Okay,
we want to
yeah.
hear as well. We want to hear, like, what do you think about the way you balance between the natural preservation and tourism development?
Okay, yeah. Thank you, Mas Ria. So, responding to the questions of how to balance between natural preservance and tourism development. I think I will be talking as part of community. So I'd like to respond these questions from the perspective of parties that are responsible in balancing in balancing the natural preservance and tourism development. Excuse me, Ms. Ria, is my voice clear enough?
Yes, yes, yes.
Oh, okay. Okay, it's not clear. Okay, so I'd like to respond to the question from the perspective of the parties that have responsibility in balancing the natural preservance and the tourism development. So the parties, of course, they are government and then the stakeholders, and then the NGOs, and then the community. And I'm talking as the representative of community because I'm not the expert of tourism and tourism. But then I do agree with Mr. Patara. So I think he also said about awareness and with the other speakers. So I think when all of the parties that have to be responsible and involved in balancing the natural preservance and the tourism development, if they play their roles, and then good tourism will be will take place. So when the government or the stakeholders see an opportunity or a chance of making a new spot, for example, in parts of Indonesia or in local town, or perhaps in, for example, in Kudus. So it will be good if the government also involve the communities so that they will not only meet the expectation of the tourists, but then they also think of about the sustainable tourism development, the sustainable development of the tourism. So it's not only about pleasing anyone, the tourists. So, oh, I've got a great tourist attraction, for example, like what we just said in Bali. So that kind of place is not for us. Or perhaps for me, yeah, I cannot afford to stay in an expensive hotel and then seeing the nice view in Bali. Although Balinese perhaps could not afford that. So it's kind of what it's yeah, it's oh, I cannot say what is it like. So, yeah, I think, okay, back to the point that all parties have to be responsible. They have to play their roles, and the government, the stakeholders, they have to involve the community in the very beginning of the development. If they think of tourism development, so they have to be able to think of the impacts, the bad impacts of providing tourism development. Okay, because I think the one which is very important is the person, and the person, I mean the parties that I mentioned, they have to be uh, they have to be gathered, yeah. So kind of, for example, in Kudus, we've got Kudus is famous of kretek, kota kretek. So we've got many factories, cigarette factories, and there is an interesting what is it? I cannot say that it is a tourist attraction, but then if you visit Kudus and then if you want to do kind of factory visit, so we can take you to the factory. So the factory will take you to the company and then see how people of Kudus make cigarettes, and then how they yes, from the beginning, how to make the cigarette. So it's kind of tourism attraction, I think, and yeah, those who can see the opportunities can be from the government, can be from the stakeholder, or even the communities, because sometimes new tourist attraction come up when the communities just realize that, oh, this is my village, but then I see a lot a potential of being the tourism attraction like that. So yeah, I think that's my opinion, Ms. Ria. So I'd like to respond. I'd like to highlight that the parties that have to be responsible for balancing the cultural, for the natural preservance and also the tourism development is the government and then the stakeholder, the communities and all people involved in that in the tourism. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Ms. Ria.
Thank you so much, Ms. Luciana. Totally agree with you, yeah. How joint movement among government, private sectors, and the people is highly needed, yeah, to reshape or to preserve the nature when we talk about tourism. And I did a mini research or like comparison studies about nation branding years ago, and I found that Thailand is one of the best countries in ASEAN in terms of nation branding because they have been successfully implemented a great collaboration between government, private sectors, and the people. So now I wonder, like in Thailand, so Mr. Pat, how does the tourism sector play a role in cross-cultural understanding?
Okay. Before I go to the second question, I'm sorry. I just seen someone's Mr. Ade Yui asking asked about the first question, right? Is there any weakness from visual campaign in order to influence people to protect environment, and what possible future challenge? If I understand the questions correctly, I think this is kind of really kind of like pragmatic questioning. So, well, there are. The answer is always it's going to be that, right? Things have pro and con. So visual campaign designers sometimes they probably have some weakness providing false information and stuff as well. But if I probably going to highlight these issues more specifically in Thailand, about the first question is that actually Thai new generations have a very different behavioral when they go travel than previous generations quite a lot, because I would like to highlight the word lifestyle. Now today in Thailand, there's so many influentials from another countries that came and help us be more variety in terms of the lifestyle. They have more activities than in the past a lot when we go out. And there are some lifestyle that try to blend people behavior to the nature more and more. There are always a possibility, there are a way, an opportunity and a possibility to shift and change the system to make people have a different system and behavior when they go travel. Because as a designer, we got to believe in that, because we try to design something new every day. And if we are going to design something new, then we had to believe that the system in terms of visually campaign, traveling and stuff, and the new type of lifestyle will be more concerned about the world. There are possibilities in that. And I think that's the main role for every designer in this world. For the second question, how does the tourism sector play in a role in cross-cultural understanding? Well, when we talk about cross-cultural, hybrid culture, mixing culture, I have to mention that Thailand, or since quite a while ago, be mixed, have a part to play in this role for a while now. And tourism and designs are, for me, one of the most important parts to play in this role, because like I say, tourism and design use soft power. So in order to introduce people from another culture to mix or learn, blend or share with another culture, to understand another culture, if you guys force them to understand another culture, that will not last long. So tourism and design use appreciations and plays. We use plays as a sign to encourage people to understand that. So I think they play the main factor on the roles in cross-cultural understanding. And in Thailand, if more specifically, nowadays design area in every field, designers use very variety materials, and we work collapsing with the multicultural based design, because the reasons why we do that, because designs and culture cannot be separate. The same way as art and cultural cannot be separate, because culture is real, and that its perspective in culture, it shows reality that one community exists and been living and have a livelihood and going on their life, for centuries. So that is really important, because when we try to learn how to cross culture, it means we try to learn how to be respectful to another material in this world, another differentness, so we see more beauty, we see more differentness, and that is the key point on the tourism and designs to play a super big part, because in Thailand we love to do traveling. I think not in Thailand, everyone in the world love traveling, and I've seen designs in Thailand now, so they change a lot. They change. They more open their arms with the mixed type of the culture. And of course, the same way we doing it here, we are learning each other culture by sharing, by talking. It would be much better if we can meet in person, but now technology is coming to help. That's why we still can be meet, and then we can still sharing the information from another part of the world, right? So how does it play? It play as an activity, as in a lifestyle, and it's changed a lot from the past, and also the design as well. So to see the cultural diversity, I think it's super important for the tourism to play a big part on this one. Yeah.
I see. Thank you so much, Mr. Pat. That's quite a comprehensive answer, like how it's not only change our mind, but also behavior of the people, and how culture or tourism sector play a huge role in shaping the cross-cultural understanding. All right, now we have one question here, and I think this is related to Mr. Danar explanation previously. So this is from Jara. Hi, I'm Jara from UII. I have a question. I have watched some movie or video representing the existence of animals with a human in the tourism area or in settlement. Somehow I find it beautiful, and I was wondering what you guys think. More prefer separating them in preserve or make settlements friendly to human and animal? Oh, maybe like how we can be, like considerate and mindful when we come to introducing the tourism with the animal in it and the interaction between human and animal. So what do you think, Mr. Danar?
Yeah, every animals relationship between human and animals have will be different with different animals. Yeah, there are some animals that can be have high relation or about with a human, but the other is better to put spirit between animal and human. So we have to really understand the habitat, the character of the animals before we decide to create the relationship. Is the can we touch the animal, or we can just see? Yeah, can we feed the animal, or we can just see the animal? So different animals will we have different relationship that have to be decided before it. But what we want to do first, we have to think is how to make the animal safe first. And then second is we talk about ourselves, about how we get the photograph. That's after that. But first thing about how to make the animal safe, and of course ourselves also safe. And after that, yeah, if you want to take a picture, and the other one, it's, yeah, it's depend on what animal we talk about. Yeah, some like some animal we can touch, some animal we can feed, because maybe we find how to feed the animal well. Of course we have to use the feed that come from the the place the animal grow, yeah. And but the other one, maybe better we put the animal and human in a separate place lah. Okay,
Okay, thank you so much.
I hope I can answer that question.
Yeah. So yeah, basically you need to be mindful on which kind of animal that you want to have interaction with, and also like safety first. Safety first is the key. All right, everyone, all the speakers. Actually, I really want to hear the answer from Miss Dayu and also Miss Rusiana about how the tourism sector play a role in cross-cultural understanding. However, we run out of time. And then, yeah, I think we can continue the discussion on different agenda. Thank you so much for all the speakers in the second panel. This is really rich. The discussion is really fruitful. So if I may conclude some points from the second panel is that we should be mindful and try our best to appreciate everything that we have around us. It can be our culture, our tourism, our values, and don't forget to make a great collaboration with other people, because it's not only about us. I mean, it's not only about ourselves, but it's all about us. So thank you so much for all the speakers on the second panel. Thank you so much to Miss Dayu, Miss Rusiana, Mr. Pat, and also Mr. Danar. Ladies and gentlemen, please give virtual applause for all the panelists.
And I'm sorry if I speak too long, and I usually get
Thank
time.
you.
You know, I'm really sorry.
We will have the last panel with the topic "Listen to the Earth." The speakers are, first we have Mr. Ginanjar Gailea from Universitas Islam Indonesia, and the second one we have Associate Professor Dr. Sare Supratit from Rangsit University. So, ladies and gentlemen, please together welcome both of the speakers by giving a virtual applause. Okay, thank you. Let me check the sound. Hi, Mr. Ginanjar. How are you?
How are you? Is my voice clear, Rian?
Yes, your voice is clear. Thank you. What about Professor Dr. Sere Supratit? How are you?
How are you? Yeah, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Nice to meet you.
Okay, nice to meet you too.
All right. So for the last panel, it's different from the first and the second. So I will do some kind of interview, a short interview with Mr. Ginanjar first, and after that we will hear a presentation from the Associate Professor Seri Supratit. All right. So let me start by giving out a question to Mr. Ginanjar. So, Mister, what is the urgency to protect the environment today? In your, based on your experience and your.
I saw it too.
Okay, thank you very much, Ria, for the question. Yeah, before I get to the question, I would like to extend my greetings to Professor Supratit. How are you, Prof? And then I would like to extend my gratitude to all the committee from Rangsit University and also from Universitas Islam Indonesia. And good afternoon from Yogyakarta to all of you. Yeah, It is an interesting question, Ria, about the urgency to protect our environment. If the question is how urgent it is to protect our environment, then my answer is very urgent. If we look at it, natural disasters such as floods, landslides, are part of a disaster that occurs due to human activity. Overexploitation by humans has damaged our nature, resulting in disasters that are detrimental to us. However, the urgency to protect nature is not a top priority at this time, be it in the community or policymakers. In Indonesia itself, if we look at it, the government's focus is more on economic growth and not the environment. Even more dangerous thing of this human indifference is the potential for a bigger catastrophe that humanity will face due to climate change. Without us knowing it, the activities of production and consumption that have been going on so far have an impact on the rise of the Earth temperature. What we often see is that the burning of fossil fuels such as coal and oil has produced carbon gas, which is one of the gases that contributes to the greenhouse effect. And this greenhouse effect slowly increases the temperature of the Earth's surface and causes the melting of the ice in the North Pole and Greenland, which then results in the rising of sea surface. It is currently estimated that our sea level is rising 3 millimeters every year. If this keeps happening in the future, many of the land will be covered by water. Small islands in Indonesia, such as in Maluku or in Papua, will sink. Archipelagic countries such as Indonesia and Oceania will experience severe impacts due to the rise of sea level. Of course, we can definitely prevent this if we all have the same perception of the threat that will arise due to the blind exploitation of nature. One of the factors that makes human unable to see the urgency is because humans are currently trapped in the anthropocentric paradigm. In environmental philosophy, anthropocentrism is a perspective that places humans as the center of life, where nature and the environment are only seen as the tools to meet human needs. That is why humans feel entitled to dominate animals and plants because they are only means to sustain human life. It is time for us to change this paradigm, yeah, from anthropocentrism that prioritizes human interest to biocentrism, a perspective that places humans and all the living things on this earth as equal entities. Or we can also move to a more fundamental paradigm. It is called ecocentrism, where human existence is determined not only by its relationship with living things, but also by non-living entities such as land, beach, water, mountains, air, and so on. So I think that's what I can respond to this question. And maybe if it is not complete, maybe it can be explored more by Professor. Thank
All
you,
right.
Ria.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gunadjar. So since you mentioned that the priority of government is more about economic growth instead of
Yeah.
the protecting the nature. So it's like nature versus economic growth.
Yes.
So was it about changing the paradigm is the only way to balance between the industrial interests and the environmental protection, or you have different or more ideas on it?
Yeah, we know that industrialization is at the heart of a country's economic growth. Yeah. In Indonesia, industrialization can increase the number of workforce, which means reducing unemployment. Industry is also able to boost a country's economy. However, industrial practices carried out so far do not pay attention to the environmental aspects. Although there are factories or companies concerned with environmental impact, the number is very small. Therefore, in my opinion, the agency that has a big role in regulating industrial practices to be environmentally friendly is the state. The state, through its power, is able to intervene, to regulate, to direct, to limit the production process that are detrimental to the environment. However, in practice, the state is not too firm in regulating this issue. In many cases, the state has joined to allow environmental destruction. In many cases in Indonesia, we can see the state does not take action against companies that deliberately burn land to open plantations, as happened in Kalimantan and Sumatra. The state also does not provide any sanctions for the practice of like illegal logging. That's the first one, the state as the agent. And then the second one, in my opinion, is environmental damage can be reduced by global cooperation. This global cooperation that binds every country to obey the efforts of nature preservation. Perhaps the most recent in terms of cooperation is in context of environmental protection is Paris Agreement, which was implemented in November 2016. This Paris Agreement is a treaty between countries in the world to reduce the effect of global warming. Here, every country, including Indonesia, is required to create measurable programs to, for example, reduce carbon production. However, this cooperation will not be effective if there are countries that are not committed to making efforts in reducing the effects of global warming. As we know, in June 2017, President of the United States withdrew from Paris Agreement and accused this program of being an obstacle to the country's economic growth. From an environmental perspective, the impact of environmental damage is global. Even though only one country has destroyed the environment, the impact will get to all of us. So, in this case, every country cannot escape the consequences of their production activities. Every country must commit that industrial practice of its country contributes to the excessive carbon production, so that all countries must be ready to take responsibility and strive to overcome the dangerous impacts of climate change. So I think that is my response in balancing the industry and natural protection.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Ginanjar. I think it's really mind-blowing on there is a virtue in protecting the nature and economic growth, and some ways we can do to tackle the situation is by changing the paradigm and encourage government initiative. Thank you so much for the insight. Thank you so much. And then next, please let me welcome the Associate Professor, Dr. Sri Pratit, to share your perspective, sir, on how we should listen to the earth. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, moderators. Yeah, thank you for the organization of this event. Good afternoon, Mr. Kanaja and everyone.
Good
Okay.
afternoon, sir.
Yeah, Mr. Kanaja that talks about the paradigm change of our societies already. Okay, I think this topic is very popular, yeah, in the world, especially for the young generations. If you ask any young generations of many countries, who knows Tumble, who knows the one of the lady that got the well-known young scientist, young how we call it, activist, from Sweden, Greta Thunberg, as you know, this guy, because the climate change will impact young generation very much, as you know, because the impact of climate change is not linearly, it is exponential. That means it will affect our young generations. Okay, of course, as you know that from my experience from IPCC, it's more than 10 years now. Right? So IPCC is really concerned about the adaptations too much. Because as you know that even though we have so many climate change conferences, maybe we can know in terms of the COP, Conference of Party. The next COP will be in England, in Britain, 26, COP26 already. You can imagine that from COP number 1 to number 25, what happened and what is the results. Because every time we have the negotiations, it cannot fulfill our goals at all because we have so many difference of country in terms of GDP. Right? So it's very difficult to negotiate. Right? So one thing that Southeast Asian, Indonesia, Thailand, is one of the most vulnerable to climate change areas. Right? IPCC also talk about Indonesia, also and Thailand. You know, Indonesia is namely the disaster supermarket. This is, disaster supermarket. You see, you have every kind of disaster, right? Starting from volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, floods, right? Every time. Also in Thailand, also we have every year flood and droughts every year, and now we have a very big problem about the sea level rise. Indonesia also, as you know, or I know, is that the government of Indonesia have decided to move the Jakarta to another area, right? So the same in Bangkok also, we have a big force from the sea level rise every year. So now we have initiated the project how to do with the Bangkok sinking, the same as in Jakarta, right? So this is the same. So I would like to use about maybe 5 minutes to show some of the key points of my PowerPoints that I want to deliver to on young generations and also on your participation. So okay, please. Okay. Okay, no, this is the last one already. Yeah, please move to the first one. Yeah. No, that's one. Just, yeah, sorry, the first one, this one. Okay, yeah. Can you see the desktop now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. This slide is talk about the compound shocks or compound hazards. You know, of course, we are dealing the very big issue about COVID-19. But at the same time, we have a lot of events or hazards around the world, right? So just last 2 weeks, we have a big avalanche in India. They kill about more than 100 people, okay? And then I heard that we have also volcanic eruptions, something like that. In Thailand, we have several floods last year. So this we call is a compound hazards or compound shock. How to deal with this? Very important. So as you know that in the last January World Economic Forum, what they talk about, what is the key risk of the world? The answer is that environmental hazards and climate extreme. Yeah, this is the very two issue that the world have to discuss. Okay. So come to the next slide, okay, please. Go to next slide. Okay. This slide is just I took it from the United Nations. Yeah, they says that there are no vaccines for climate change. Yeah, it's really real, very real issue. Eh? Because even though you have a vaccine for COVID-19, but about the climate change. Okay. So come to the third slide. Yeah, this is the key impacts from IPCC. Yeah. As everyone can see that we are in the dangerous world if we don't have anything to manage this. Yeah. The first top line, you see, I write down the BAU, business as usual. This is just to respond to society that if we don't do anything, the temperature may be 3 to 4 degrees rise in the next 30 or 50 years, right? So the lowest line is a 1.5 degree scenario. See? The second lowest line is at 1.5 to 2 degrees. This is the Paris Agreement that every country agree to decrease the world temperature to at least not more than 2 degrees. Right? So the top lines that I mentioned, this is the situation now, BAU. How we can manage it? How we can fulfill the goal? Very difficult to do. Yeah. So come to the next slide, okay? I can conclude from the key message from IPCC is that the first one is that environmental risks become global dominance. The second one is climate change hit harder and more rapidly than expected. The third one, any delay in greenhouse gas mitigation is likely to lead more severe and frequent climate extremes. And the last one is business as usual is over. This is the same line to the World Economic Forum's conclusions. It's the same. So what happened after this? We have to estimate and we have to assess. So the next slide is, you know, I just very concerned about this because of the United Nations says that they make assessment now which country of the world that can have any commitment in scenario 1.5 or 2 degree. You see the gray country, you see like US, right? And Russia are in the North Pole. You see, it means that critical insufficient. What does it mean? It means that they have to do very much about this in order to fulfill the 1.5 or 2 degree goal. Right? How about the orange country? You see, highly insufficient. Yeah? The yellow one is that insufficient. Only the green one. Yeah? The green one is compatible to 1.5 or the role model. If you see the map, only one green country in that, you see, in the north of the Africa, that is Morocco. right? Because it's a very small country. Right? This is assessment by the United Nations. What does it mean? It means that all countries of the world need urgently to do something now. Right? They just made conclusion from this slide that no country can fulfill the 2030 sustainable agenda. We have only 10 years to fulfill the goal, a sustainable goal. But if you see this map, we have very, how we call it, very great risk, right, to fulfill that goal. Okay. The last one, that's ISO. But it is not too late to do anything. Right? We have to start now, not only talking. This is the IPCC scenario that if we want to fulfill 1.5 degree goal, we have to do at least one of the scenario from the IPCC here. I just mark the scenario 3 because it's the middle of the road. You see, the green line in this picture is mean the net zero emission in 2050. If we cannot do this one, the world will be in dangerous world. So I just conclude from my talk now is that we have no time at all. Just talking. Let's act it now. Okay, this is some of my points.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Can
Thank
you
you
hear
so
me?
Yes, sure. Thank you so much to Professor Serisu Pradip. So, despite all the threat, all the challenge in the environment, what we can do now is take action. Thank you so much
Yes.
for the message, Professor. Thank you so much for the message. So now I'm going to open the Q&A session. We already have one question on the chat box. So for other participants, if you also have question, feel free to the chat box or yeah. So this is just one question left, I think, since we have time. So this is from Lania. We would like to ask Mr. Ginanjar, with the behavior of Indonesian people, are we able to immediately change the paradigm as previously described, so that we can do sustainable development and of course can protect our environment? So, Mr. Ginanjar, what do you think? It is
Is my
related
voice
to
clear,
the
Ria?
behavior of Indonesian people.
Hello. Can you hear me? Hello, Ria. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, Mas.
Yes, Mas.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for the questions. Yeah. Is it possible to change the paradigm? My answer is we can change the paradigm. However, it is very difficult because paradigm doesn't appear or doesn't come from individual level. It is a social construction. Yeah. So all of the people should have the same paradigm to have the same awareness to protect the environment. But as I mentioned before, there are one effective way to deal with this. It is by the state intervention. However, our state policy does not support this environmental protection. Uh, to my knowledge, Indonesia is one of the country that will start building coal power plant in 2020. and the government just revised the law that invite the investors to invest their money to exploit forest in Kalimantan. So uh, related to the current development, this pandemic, yeah. I'm sorry, why my voice echoes?
Nothing happened, Mas. Everything is all right.
We can hear you clearly.
Really?
We can hear you clearly. Don't worry.
Okay, because I heard my own voice here. Okay, yeah, I would like to add some evidence from today's government's pandemic policy that there is no one policy that wants to deal with environmental protection after COVID-19. Yeah, all of the policy was designed to economic growth, to boost the economy. So yeah, let's hope. I think that's all. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Ginanjar, for answering the question from our participants. I would like to hear maybe the closing remarks from the third panel from Professor Sari. Maybe you can give a closing remark on how we should listen to the earth.
Yeah, I think that as Mr. Naja says that, yeah, about the coal electric production from coal, right? Coal is really, how you call it? Is this the source that emits the greenhouse gas emissions? Number one, coal, right? So of course, after COVID-19, I think that every country have to reboot economics. Right? That means they may use too much coal from now because to reboot. Right? This is the Vivaldi. Right? The measurements of greenhouse gas emissions this year. Somebody says that due to the COVID-19, the greenhouse gas emission must be lower, something like that. But IPCC monitor this. Right? This is not just that thing. It's just reduced only in April last year, right? And then return to the normal again. That means from now, it will be more and more greenhouse emissions released from our societies. Right? In the scenario that I mentioned in the last slide is that if we cannot reduce more than 50 to 30% of coal production, we will never get to the 1.5 degree scenario. Yeah, you have to reduce 50 to 30% of coal, and then of course every country now thinks about renewable energies. Right? But renewable energy now is about maybe 10 to 20% in the proportions. Right? Of course, we have to increase this one to replace the coal. And then the second one is oil, and the third one is the natural gas. So in order to compromise between the economic goals and then environmental hazards, what is the point? Yeah? To balance between economic and also environment. That is each country have to think about this thing. Like if you prefer economic, you put every coal productions, oil, so it's come with the 3 to 4 degree. So we cannot allow this to happen, right? So I think that my point is that how to balance this thing. Of course, as I tell you maybe the first slide that even though United Nations says that we have a major challenge and also a major risk that to fulfill the 2030 sustainable agenda, only 10 years left. So that is the point that all members country have to see that how to save the world. Okay, that's my point.
All right, thank you so much, Prof, for the closing remarks. I think it is a good reminder for everyone to understand how we can contribute for the society, and by start from anything we can do, and just let's take action now. All right, thank you so much for the third panel. Thank you to Mr. Ginanjar, to Associate Professor Dr. Sari, and then, ladies and gentlemen, please give virtual applause for all the panelists on the third panel.
Thank you very much, Prof. Supratit.
Yep, thank you so much.
It's a very great discussion, Prof.
All right. Now, to all the students, before I close our agenda today, please let me remind you about your homework or your assignment for this event. All right. So, yep. Please remember that you need to prepare the following parts for your final assignment. The first one, you need to prepare 300 words, write your own tale of the local, and give a personal reflection on the mission of P2A to unite the youth in the ASEAN community by building knowledge, experience, and understanding of different cultures and societies. The second one is you need to use your creativity to take one picture, only one, in your own environment that best represents the topic of photography and footprint. And the last one, in 300 words, write your own personal perspective on environmental issues in the ASEAN community and include your views on how you believe people should listen to the earth to address these challenges. And don't forget to submit it there. I think you have this data. And then, all right, I think that's all the reminder for the students. And now we arrive to the end of the today's agenda. I hope you enjoy the talk show today and get a meaningful insight about the culture and how we can preserve it. Last but not least, on behalf of Universitas Islam Indonesia, we extend our appreciation to each and every one of you. We do hope we can meet again in different occasions. Ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy the rest of your day. I am Siti Mahdaria. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum